Has Sean Strickland ever fought a really, really strong wrestler?
I looked through his resume and he has not.
Not really fought a strong wrestler, but he's known for having really good grappling, really good takedown defense. But there's just different fucking levels of grappling, and Khamzat is at the highest level. Like, I think him and Islam are the two. They're just so dominant in that aspect. Sean Strickland has great cardio. I feel like Khamzat's going to be able to get a hold of him. He's going to be able to take him down, but is he going to be able to do that over and over and over? Is he going to be able to finish him? I don't know. If Sean can get up, Strickland got it done, it would be fucking sweet.
The winner, Dana said, is obviously fighting for the title next for Sean Strickland. How do you think that fight plays out between you two?
All fight in my head, I smash somebody, you know.
Like, were you sparring in the gym and Sean Strickland told you to, like...
Dana White just flipped the script on the most feared man in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev isn't just fighting for a title, he's fighting for his survival in a division that's moving on without him. The undefeated monster who once looked like an inevitable double champion is suddenly standing on the edge of a cliff. Dana's latest announcement didn't just set up a fight, it set a trap that could effectively erase everything Chimaev has built over the last 4 years. The aura is fading, and the UFC boss is the one holding the eraser. This isn't just about a belt anymore, it's about whether the Boar's era ends before it truly begins.
If somebody goes hard, I go hard. If somebody plays, I don't like to train, you know, so I need to be hard work and hard fighting, hard sparring. Play shit is not for me.
At the UFC Apex to talk about a lot of big fights that are going to be happening, and the first one right off the bat, the biggest news of them all, and we were kind of waiting for this one. We kind of had a feeling that maybe this was going to happen, and I am of course talking about the one and only Khamzat Chimaev taking on for the middleweight title Sean Strickland. That is correct. Sean needs no nickname. He gets called lots of names by a lot of people because he's a controversial guy, but I'll tell you what, the way that he beat Alexander Fluffy Hernandez, the way that he put a beat down on him respectfully to Fluffy, the way that he finished him with that knee to the midsection, and then to be honest, how he handled himself on the...
Sean Strickland is the man chosen to deliver the final blow to the myth of Khamzat. This isn't some random matchup made for highlights. It's a calculated move by the brass to test a hype train that's been stalled by injuries and inactivity. We're talking about a middleweight title shot on the line, but for Khamzat, the stakes are infinitely higher. If he can't steamroll the most controversial man in the sport, the narrative of his dominance is dead. Dana is essentially saying put up or shut up, and for a fighter who thrives on fear, being forced into a corner by the promoter is the ultimate career risk.
How's he going to do against Khamzat Chimaev? I don't know about that. Khamzat Chimaev is ridiculous. What is he, 15-0? He's a force of nature. Of course, went to a decision with Dricus du Plessis, controlled him throughout the entirety of the fight. Yes, he was trying to finish it, but he didn't get it. But other than that, he does smoke most people. Now, Sean Strickland gets the shot over Nassourdine Imavov. Now, let me just look at my notes here because I'll tell you when and where exactly that is happening. It is going to be May.
Let's look at the cold, hard reality of the what have you done for me lately culture in the UFC. You can be the scariest wrestler on the planet, but if you aren't active, you become a ghost. Dana White is a businessman first, and he's tired of waiting for the Chimaev of 2020 to reappear. By pitting him against a cardio machine like Strickland, Dana is testing the one thing Khamzat has struggled with, the deep waters. We've seen him fade in 3-round wars, but a 5-round title eliminator against a guy who never stops talking? That's a recipe for a career-altering disaster.
Strickland's already beat Imavov. Yeah, it was a while ago, but a win's a win. And he just put a beat down and a stoppage on Fluffy, right? Imavov beat Kyle Bahia by decision, and we all know this sport's about what have you done for me lately. There is a backstory between Chimaev and Sean Strickland. They have trained with one another. There's a bit of shit talk. There's going to be bad blood. We know that the lead up to the fight will be
The history between these two is where things get truly dark. This isn't just professional, it's personal. They've shared a gym, traded sweat, and according to the rumors, traded plenty of shock talk behind closed doors. Strickland knows what it's like to feel Khamzat's pressure, but he also knows where the cracks are. When you've trained with the boogeyman, he stops being scary. Dana knows this history better than anyone. By making this fight, he's intentionally stripping away the mystery that Khamzat uses to mentally break his opponents before the cage door even even closes.
Doesn't hold back. He talks shit, but in a kind of reserved way, but like he truly believes in himself. And Sean Strickland is just going to go on the full offensive. We know that. We know that. He's going to be talking some crazy shit. Dana even joked about it on the little show that we did there. He said they're going to need extra security for that fight, during the fight week, leading up to the fight, after the fight, in the fight. It's going to be a mad one because Sean Strickland doesn't hold back. And you know what? Even if you don't like the shit that he says, you have to appreciate the entertainment value that he brings to the table. And then on top of that, the performances inside the octagon. That one against Fluffy, that was a different Sean Strickland, okay? But can he...
Think about the level of aggression we're about to see. Dana himself joked that they're going to need extra security for this one. That's not just promotion, it's a warning. We're talking about a rivalry that transcends the octagon and spills into the streets, the hotels, and the press conferences. When the boss is openly talking about the need for extra muscle just to keep two fighters apart, you know the psychological warfare has already begun. This is exactly the kind of high-pressure environment that can either make a superstar or break a man's mental health for good.
UFC White House event, okay? The card broke last week. Justin Gaethje, Ilia Topuria, of course, in the main event. The co-main event, Pereira trying to become a three-weight division champion by getting the interim heavyweight belt against Cyril Gane, right? They're great fights, top to bottom. Steve Garcia opening the card, that's phenomenal. This man's on like an 8-fight win streak, and most of them are in the very first round. Now, check this out. Obviously, at the White House, it's going to be invite only. It's going to be a lot of dignitaries and VIPs, and, you know, you can't just have any old Tom, Dick, and Harry at the White House, okay? So across the street, at the Ellipse.
Strickland isn't just a gatekeeper, he's a psychological wrecking ball. He's the guy who told Khamzat to keep the violence inside the cage while carrying himself with an aura that screams he doesn't care about the consequences. While most fighters are intimidated by Khamzat's "I will kill everyone" persona, Sean just laughs in his face. That lack of fear is a poison to a fighter like Chimaev. If the fear is gone, the wrestling becomes a lot harder to land and the gas tank starts to drain a lot faster. Dana knows that if Strickland wins, he's effectively erased the scariest brand in MMA.
85,000 tickets will be available for free. So as soon as they go on sale, you better put your name down because they will be allocated on a first come, first serve basis. And let me tell you something right now. Of course, I took the opportunity when I was there with Dana, working with him, talking about the White House. When I heard the tickets were free, I'm like, hey, hook a brother up. So myself, Rebecca, all the family, we're going to Washington, D.C. for the first time, and hopefully I'm going to be working on that card as well. So get yourself a ticket when they're announced because this truly is a one-on-one event, one of one even. Anyway, right. Let's go.
The timing of this is everything. May 9th in Newark isn't just a random date. It's the convergence point for two of the most volatile personalities the sport has ever seen. The tension is already thick enough to cut with a knife, and they haven't even been in the same city yet. This fight is being positioned as the ultimate test of wills. It's wrestling versus volume, but more importantly, it's discipline versus chaos. Dana is gambling on the fact that the fans will show up for the car crash, even if it means one of his biggest potential stars gets totaled in the process.
Perth, Australia, I'll be there, of course. If there's somewhere to go and it's on the other side of the world and it involves hours and hours and hours of travel and thousands of air miles, of course they send me, which I'm very happy about. But the main event, of course, will be Jack Della Maddalena, the former champion, returning home prime time Saturday night. Jack Della Maddalena, love the guy. There's always something special about when a champion returns home to the city of their origin, okay? The fans are gonna go crazy.
Look at what happened to the last few invincible fighters who hit a wall. One loss leads to a change in perception, and suddenly the matchmaking gets a lot less favorable. Dana doesn't protect legacies, he exploits them for the biggest possible numbers. Khamzat has been the benefactor of a lot of hype, but the leash is getting short. If he doesn't dominate Strickland the way he did his early opponents, the UFC will pivot to the next big thing faster than you can say smesh. The era of the protected prospect is officially over for the man from Chechnya.
He's taking on Carlos Praches, a man that is gigantic, for the division, has ridiculous power, just bounced Leon Edwards' head off the canvas respectfully to Rocky, and then before that had that spinning back elbow knockout of Jeff Neal. And as I said, he's massive for the division. I was hanging out with him in Australia. I could not believe the size of this guy. So Jack Della Maddalena taking on Carlos Praches. That's a sick fight, and I'll see you down there in Perth as well. What else have we got? Went through Strickland and Chimaev. But check this one out on the 6th.
While everyone is focused on the wrestling, nobody is talking about the mental toll. Strickland is a guy who goes hard in sparring every single day. He doesn't believe in play sessions. He's told Khamzat to his face that if someone goes hard, he goes harder. This isn't a game to Sean. It's a way of life. If Khamzat tries to bully him and fails, he's going to find himself in a dogfight with a man who actually enjoys the pain. That's the moment careers are erased, when a bully realizes his victim isn't scared of the consequences.
Almighty Allen, that is correct. He will be taking on none other than Melchizedek Costa. Arnold Allen's been in there with some of the best on the planet. We're talking to people like Movsar Evloev, last time against Jean Silva, Max Holloway, you name him. Arnold Allen's been in there with all of them, and he gives them all a good fight, okay? He's tremendously talented. He truly is world class. And then on the other side, Michael Costa on a 6-fight winning streak. Last time out, spinning back kick right to the dome, cracked him in the face. First person to knock out Dan Ige. And before that, a head kick knockout. Okay, so not an easy fight for Arnold Allen. What else do we have? We got more. We ain't stopping here. Check this out. Sonya Dong versus Davison Arnold.
Dana is also orchestrating a massive shift in the UFC's global landscape. Look at the scale of these upcoming events. We're talking about 85,000 free tickets at the Ellipse across from the White House. This is mainstream exposure on a level we've never seen. In a world where the UFC is becoming a global powerhouse of entertainment, there's no room for fighters who can't make it to the scale or can't fight in specific territories. If Khamzat can't be a reliable part of these historic cards, he becomes an expensive liability that Dana is more than willing to write off.
He's taking on Davison Figueiredo, another man that likes to bang, another man that likes to crack. And speaking of people that like to bang, check this out. Co-main event, Zhang Mingyang. He's returning. He was on a crazy streak, knocking everyone out, and then he kind of shat the bed in his hometown of Shanghai, or his home country, against Johnny Walker. Well, guess what? He ain't done. He's coming back. He ain't finished. He's still motivated. He's still training his goddamn arse off, and he's going up against Alonzo Menifeld. Tell me someone's not going to get knocked out in that fight. Menifield's a banger. Zhang's a banger. Maybe a little issue with the cardio. He should have fixed that going forward, so that's a good one. And we've also got the returning.
The "what have you done for me lately" ethos is ruthless. Strickland just put a brutal beatdown on Fluffy Hernandez, finishing him with a devastating knee to the midsection. He's active, he's vocal, and he's winning. Meanwhile, Khamzat's last win against a top middleweight was a razor-thin decision against Kamaru Usman, who took the fight on a week's notice. The momentum has shifted completely. Dana is rewarding the guy who shows up and fights everyone, while the boogeyman is left trying to prove he still belongs in the conversation of the elite.
Aljamain Sterling, the former champion, who is demanding a title shot right now, demanding a title shot in the featherweight division because he just beat Brian Ortega. Well, guess what? He's not getting a title fight, okay? And I don't think he should right now. He's still got some work to do. He's taking on Youssef Zalal. That will be going down on the 25th of April. Incidentally, that is Callum's birthday. Still, regardless, that's going down at the Apex. Aljamain Sterling taking on Youssef Zalal. Zalal's on like a 5-fight win streak. I think 4 of them are finishes. A lot of submissions to his resume. Very, very low.
Let's talk about that decision against Dricus du Plessis. While it was competitive, it showed that Khamzat is human. He can be outworked and he can be outgrinded. If a guy like Dricus can survive the initial storm, imagine what a cardio freak like Strickland will do in the 4th and 5th rounds. Dana isn't blind to these stats. He's choosing the exact stylistic nightmare to see if Khamzat is a true champion or just a front runner who collapses when the finish doesn't come in the first 3 minutes.
We have Gilbert Burns. He's taking on Mike Malott. That's going down in Winnipeg, north of the border. In Canada. That'll be cold. It's April. It'll still be cold. I remember when I fought in Montreal at UFC 83. That was in April, I believe. It was in April. There was massive piles of snow everywhere. So Winnipeg's going to be freezing, but the main event's going to be hot and firing because it's Gilbert Burns taking on Mike Malott. Co-main event. event, Kyle Phillips taking on Sean.
The security concerns are real because the animosity is genuine. This isn't manufactured drama like a pro wrestling script. These guys have a history of clashing behind closed doors where there are no cameras to capture the truth. When Dana mentions needing extra guards, he's acknowledging that the situation is barely under control. If a brawl breaks out before the fight, it could lead to bans, fines, or worse. Khamzat is already on thin ice with his availability. One more out-of-cage incident could be the final nail in the coffin of his UFC career.
Anyone hates on this, you're talking out your arse. This is a great fight. King Green, who just looked phenomenal a few weeks ago, taking on, in fact, last week, what am I saying? Taking on Jeremy Stevens, right? That is a sick fight. And then also the prelim headliner will be Atabi Gautier taking on Ozzy Diaz. So that's great, right? Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland, Nasruddin Imavov. He's going to have to wait in the meantime.
Even the undercards are being stacked with killers to ensure that if the main event fails, the brand stays strong. From King Green's resurgence to the return of guys like Aljamain Sterling at featherweight, the roster is deeper than it's ever been. Dana is building a machine that doesn't rely on any single individual. In the past, he might have babied a star like Khamzat. Today, he'll throw you to the wolves and see if you come back leading the pack. If not, there's always a new banger like Carlos Prates waiting in the wings to take your spot. Strickland's microphone skills are another weapon that Dana is using to erode Khamzat's brand. Sean is unfiltered, no holds barred, and incredibly effective at getting under people's skin. He's already started the verbal warfare, and Khamzat, who is usually the one doing the talking, seems to be struggling to keep up with the mental gymnastics. If you lose the verbal battle and then lose the physical one, there's nowhere left to hide. Dana is giving Sean the platform to publicly dismantle the myth of the Boers before the first punch is thrown. The shift to middleweight was supposed to be Khamzat's rebirth, but it's looking more like a trap. He's no longer the giant bully who can cut massive weight to overwhelm smaller welterweights. At 185 pounds, he's facing men who are just as big and just as strong. Dana is forcing him to prove his worth in a Shark Tank where guys like Nasruddin Imavov and Robert Whittaker are waiting to pick apart anyone who shows a weakness. The days of easy maulings are over, and the era of the erasure has begun. Look at the ambition of the UFC 250 event at the White House. It's a game changer for mainstream exposure. Dana is pushing the sport into the stratosphere, and he needs reliable ambassadors at the top. Can a controversial, often injured, and politically complicated figure like Khamzat be that guy? Or is a wild card like Strickland, who for all his faults, is a company man who fights anyone anywhere, a better fit for the new UFC? Dana's actions suggest he's leaning toward the latter, leaving Khamzat in the dust. The fans are starting to turn too. The invincible tag only lasts as long as the finishes do. When you start going to decisions and pulling out of fights, the audience loses interest. Dana is a master of reading the room. He knows that the hype for Khamzat is at an all-time low, and this fight with Strickland is the ultimate sink or swim moment. If Khamzat loses, he's not just a contender who fell short, he's a massive what-if whose career was effectively ended by the very machine that built him. We also have to consider the technical gap. Strickland's takedown defense is historically elite. He's not a guy who panics when someone grabs his legs. If Khamzat can't get the early submission, he's stuck in a kickboxing match with a guy who has some of the best defensive boxing in the sport. Dana has seen this movie before. He knows that when a specialist can't use his primary weapon, they often crumble. By setting this matchup, Dana is exposing Khamzat's lack of a plan B to the entire world. Even the international expansion is moving away from the Chechen boogeyman narrative. We're seeing massive cards in Perth with local heroes like Jack Della Maddalena. The UFC is finding stars in every corner of the globe who don't bring the baggage that Khamzat does. The organization is evolving, and Dana White is the architect of that evolution. If you don't fit the new mold of a reliable, world-traveling superstar, you're essentially erased from the long-term plans. Khamzat is finding that out the hard way. Let's not forget the redemption narratives Dana loves to spin. If Strickland wins, it's the ultimate story of the underdog who was written off becoming the giant slayer. If Khamzat wins, he's back. But the way Dana has framed this, the joke about security, the emphasis on Sean's microphone work, the mention of their training history, it all feels like he's rooting for the chaos. And in the UFC, chaos usually ends with a veteran like Strickland holding the hand of a broken prospect. This is the most dangerous point in Khamzat's career. He's no no longer the hunter, he's the hunted. The entire middleweight division has seen the blueprint on how to beat him. Dana has handed that blueprint to the most vocal and resilient man on the roster. It's a masterstroke of matchmaking that ensures the UFC wins no matter what, but it leaves Khamzat's future hanging by a thread. The eraser is out, and the first few letters of his legacy are already being rubbed away by the pressure of the moment. At the end of the day, Dana White doesn't destroy careers, he just stops saving them. Khamzat Chimaev was given every opportunity to become the face of the sport, but the combination of inactivity and the rising tide of new talent has changed the game. By forcing him into a war with Sean Strickland, Dana is letting the octagon decide if the hype was ever real. If the Boars falls on May 9th, it won't just be a loss on his record, it will be the moment the UFC officially moved on, leaving him as a footnote in history.